Welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 55. I'm your host, Subasa J. Ueda, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today, we're going to be talking about heavy hitters' first impressions. We're mainly just going to be talking about the weapons and equipments today, and I think that's going to be our whole podcast. But before we talk into that, how's your week so far, Yuki?
My week's been pretty good. I'm pretty much just on vacation. I'm not actually at home right now, and I won't be for the next little bit. But so if there's any like audio differences, that's why. But we're doing our best with what we have. But I'm out of town for a little bit, just sort of I don't know, relaxing vacation in Dallas.
Great. Are you still playing Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, a little bit. Been playing Armory. It's fun, but it's like CC Armory at the end of a format. It's fun, but it's like a little. I don't know about you, but I'm finding it a little hard to be like fully motivated. But I'm very excited for Heavy Hitters Limited and also exploring the new CC metagame with the Heavy Hitters cards once we get them.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have a new set in like 3 weeks, not even, right?
Yeah, exactly. So very exciting time, but like it's always like this, right? Like the lull before you get the new cards is like, I guess I'll play. It's fun. I wish I could play with draft. I like playing draft. It's funny because like I know that there was like this discussion in our locals. I love playing draft when we're like leading up to a new format. It's just like such a good for fun format. I know like so many people are the opposite. They're like all the draft formats are stale. Want to just play CC, and I don't know. I guess it's just a preference thing, but yeah, I'm like very much in the mood for draft. CC, it's okay.
That's fair. I'm always not that excited for CC at like any point unless it's like preparing for a calling or something like that. And I haven't, for me, I didn't qualify for Worlds, so I didn't have that to prepare for. Didn't want to travel for the calling, so didn't do any of that. And yeah, so like I've been CC free for like 3 months, like since national seasons last year, actually.
CC free.
Yeah, I'm CC free. I've only drafted like all the armories. I'd go, at least in Vancouver. We have like a draft armory. It's kind of weird. We have two draft armories every 2 weeks at a minimum. So that's all I've been doing for Flesh and Blood right now. I haven't touched like a CC deck in 2.5 months now.
That seems fair.
I kind of don't know what cards I own anymore. Yeah, I need to sort through my collection soon to see what I need to buy up.
Because you've been selling some of it off.
Yeah, well, I typically do like the selling and buying in my local area. So like if somebody asks for a card, I'll be like, I have it. There you go. I sell it to you. And then whenever callings or bigger events come up, I like try and build a deck, and I'll be like, oh, I ran out of E-Strikes. I need to scrap for E-Strike somehow. Or like, I don't have any more Command and Conquers. This is bad. This is a hard card to find.
Yes, that is definitely true. I'm sure our locals are probably laughing right now, but this is very normal behavior for Jay all the time. Anyways, I guess we can carry right along. There's even though we're only doing the weapons and equipment, there is a lot of weapons and equipments to talk about, so that will actually take quite a bit of time. But before we dive into that, just want to give the Patreon a quick shout out. We've been continuing to have a bunch of people join actually, and we really appreciate everybody who's decided to sign up and join the Discord. There's already been some people talking about spoilers and heavy hitters and what they're hoping to get from the set, and that's been exciting. And I actually just honestly kind of can't wait until we get the full set and people are playing pre-releases and people are going to be able to like post their sealed decks. We're going to be posting our sealed decks and our draft decks once we get to draft. So I think that the Discord is going to be just an awesome resource for everybody, and I'm really excited to see that kind of take off and everybody kind of talk about draft, talk about limited, and discuss. If that's something that interests you, you can check us out at On the Bobble or at patreon.com/On the Bobble. We really appreciate everyone's support. And if you're not able to, that's no problem. The best thing you can do is honestly just listen to the podcast, talk to your friends about it. Support us in any way you can. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, spread the word. So we have calling Queenstown this weekend, right? Today we're recording on January 17th, and Queenstown is this weekend. It's like in 2 days. So we'll get all of the cards spoiled in 2 days, actually. So I think next week we'll be talking about all the a lot of the commons and talking about Queenstown a little bit more.
Yeah, and I believe there should be coverage for that event coming up, which I'm definitely going to be watching. I'm curious to see what Heavy Hitters Limited looks like a little bit. And this is a bit of a unique situation where we have a streamed calling for Limited before we even have a pre-release. So I think going into pre-release, I'm sure that some people are not going to have really like watched coverage or be up to date on things, but a bunch of people I think are going to be, especially the really invested limited players, are probably going to have some idea of what the limited set looks like, just based on watching all the streams from the Calling Queenstown. So that's super super exciting, and I'm really curious to see just what Heavy Hitters looks like at a competitive level.
Yeah, I really wanted to be in Queenstown. Like I thought long and hard about maybe going down just to be able to play like a limited calling before the release date. Man, that sounds so fun, to be able to like be the first ones to touch a set and play the limited calling. I think we did that for what was it, Uprising? It was in Vegas for like the set premiere as well, and that was really
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun, and I also really wanted to go, but it's a lot of money to fly there from where we are. I think from North America in general. New Zealand is not the easiest place to get to for a lot of the globe. It's just a bit of a ways, but yeah, it's a really sweet event, and everybody who's there seems like they're having a blast, and I hope that they're enjoying. It's like summer down there too. It just looks so good. Like everything looks amazing. Like they've been like outdoors doing stuff. I don't know. It seems like everybody's having a great time from what I can gather.
Oh man, that sounds great. I just booked my flight for Hartford. Oh, that's a long flight. I'm kind of tight on money right now because I had a kind of a bad week this week. Playing poker. Man, the it's like a 17-hour flight essentially with all the connections. So that I can keep my
Whoa.
costs down. Yeah, no, I'm flying out on like Thursday afternoon, landing on Friday morning, and it's so basically if I do it that way, I don't have to pay an extra day on the hotel, and then I'll be able to be there for Friday morning to play all the side events. So yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a sick one. And I secured a floor with Nia.
Very nice. Yeah, traveling on a budget. That's sweet that you can go though. I'm also going to Calling Hartford. I'm coming in on like Friday night though. I think I land at 9 or 10 p.m. or something like that. I wanted to come in for the side events like you're doing, but I just can't do it. I'm going to be moving in the middle of February, and I have some stuff with the suite to take care of before I move. Unfortunately, I can't get there for the Friday events, but I will be coming in for the weekend for the calling, and yeah, super excited about that.
Okay, yeah, no, the flights are kind of awful. I was looking at it; they're all like 10-hour flights, or
Hmm.
like 16-hour flights for if you want the flights to be reasonably priced.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say mine is not quite as bad as yours, but it's not good either. Like it is. I think mine is about 10 hours, like you said. It's very hard to fly direct. It's usually like there's a layover in there somewhere. So
Okay, let's start talking about the set.
yeah. So I think what we're gonna be doing is we're just looking at heavy hitters on February, and we're just gonna go top to bottom. So I think that pretty much means we're gonna go by class, cover the weapons, cover the equipments, and for each class we're gonna be covering the legendary last. So if anybody likes having the visuals and wants to follow along that way, you can kind of see how we're going through the set.
February.net is probably like the best site to just like look at spoilers right now. It's kind of clean, and honestly, my favorite button on this website is the show placeholders button during the pre-release, like during not the pre-release, but like the spoiler season, so you can actually see like what cards we don't have like spoiled yet. Like we don't have the Fabled spoiled yet, and there's like a couple of Majestics not spoiled yet, but at this point on January 17th, we have most of the set spoiled now.
Yeah, it seems like we have most of it. Some of it's like sort of unofficial, like we don't have the high quality image, but we'll be getting it soon.
Okay, then let's start off with the brute weapon, the token weapon first actually. Let's talk about Mandible Claws first. All of the Actually, let's talk about all three of the weapons in a broad stroke. All of these weapons do the very basic core thing, right? They're all pay 2 resources attack, and they all attack for 3, and they all have slightly different abilities. And there's 3 different weapons. First one being Mandible Claws as a token, and the other 2 weapons being rares. Do you want to start with talking about Mandible Claws first?
Yeah, so this is a reprint from Crucible. It's a 2 cost, 3 attack weapon, and if you've discarded a card with 6 or more power, this gets Go Again. Quite an interesting way to extend the chain at token that a lot of heroes are going to be able to use. I think that KO in particular is going to be able to do this quite consistently due to his hero ability giving him +1 to all of his attacks that aren't on the chain, making it just like way easier to hit that density of 6s. If you're playing Mandible Claws and looking to make use of the Go Again, you're probably hoping to get some of the either like the Beat Chest cards that have Go Again and enable it. That's like the optional discard effect. You could also play a card like Wild Ride, and that would work for Mandible Claws. Or alternatively, we've also seen this series of cards called the Wind-Ups, where you can discard them to get a certain type of token. I think all of those are going to be ways that you can enable the Mandible Claw to get Go Again. And so Brute in some ways has like some of the easier access to Go Again in the set, at least at like at weapon. It seems like other classes need to work a little bit more for it. So I think that that's going to let Brute be on the more aggressive side, this format, sort of like my first impressions of Mandible Claws.
I think the key feature of Mandible Claws and actually all of the Brute's weapons in this set is that they're all one-handed weapons, right? So you can actually mix and match, and like you can play 2 Mandible Claws, you can play like a Ball Breaker and a Mandible Claw, or you can even do like Mandible Claw and a shield. There is a generic shield that we're gonna get to when we talk about the generics, but that's also a big feature about the Brutes of this set, right?
Yeah, and notably, like KO is one-handed, so he can use any of these weapons, but he'll only be able to use one, and then Reiner will be able to mix and match and dual wield, kind of exactly as he said.
How often do you think you're going to be able to get them Go Again on the Mandible Claw? Or do you think it's going to be like a trinket text that's going to be kind of hard to do and limited?
I think if your deck is built to do it, there's like a number of ways that you can. The non-attack actions with Beat Chest are pretty good enablers. We've seen like Bone Breaker Bellow as a card that can enable this. It kind of buffs your next Brute attack, and you can choose to Beat Chest and buff it up, and that seems to be pretty strong to me. And then the other most reliable way is the Wind-Ups or the Wild Ride. So I think that if your deck is built around it, you can. But there's also a whole bunch of Brute attack actions, kind of like the ones that we're used to seeing, where they have Intimidate, or they have like they just kind of like come in for 7, or it's an attack that has Beat Chest but doesn't have Go Again. So all of these things are gonna make it pretty hard to enable. But if you have the right pieces for it, I think it is something that you can enable somewhat reliably. And I guess as I'm talking about it, even the non-attacks that have Beat Chest attached to them that don't have Go Again, if you make an agility token, you will be able to do those into Mandible Claws, provided you have the agility token at the start of the turn. And that does seem to be kind of one of the sub themes for Brute. So I think that this is not necessarily something you're going to be doing every turn, but maybe something that you're building towards and making a few powerful turns where you can maybe do like attack, Mandible Claw, other weapon, or attack, Mandible Claw, attack, something like that. So I think a lot of those curves where you can pull off those turns might be some of the ways for Brute to kind of like push a lot of damage.
Do you think having one Mandible Claw, as like, I guess this is only applying for Reinhardt because he's the only 2-handed Brute, but do you think just making sure you always have one Mandible Claw is just better than having like, we're going to be talking about these weapons next, but like two Ball Breakers or 2 mini meat axes? Do you think it's just always better to have like one Ball Breaker, one Claw, or do you think like doubling up on some of the rares are kind of good too?
That's a really interesting question. I think we'll have to wait and see how they play. I could maybe see like Meat Axe and Ball Breaker because they have different effects, but I don't think you would ever want to, as Reinhardt, play double Mini Meat Axe or double Ball Breaker because they don't have Go Again. And from what I can see, there's not a lot of like. I guess you do have the agility token, so maybe you can get an agility token and go like Mini Meat Axe and the Ball Breaker. But even that doesn't sound particularly great as like a resource, like as a curve, because it costs you 4 and then you're attacking for like 7. So, I mean, like a 2-card 7 is okay, but I kind of think that you're going to want like one Mandible Claw and then maybe one of these other ones would be my initial guess. Haven't played with the set, of course.
We do still have one generic offhand like shield that Reinhardt can play. Do you think it's just like almost strictly better to always have like one mandible claw and the one shield, or like in that sense of like uh uh what's it called, a shield plus a regular weapon? Or do you think it's like double mandible claw is still gonna be better than that? Because I think that's gonna be like a question that most people needs to know when drafting this set, actually. Because like, is the shield? Do you think shield's good in Reinhardt?
I think it's gonna depend on how your deck is built. I think the more that you're playing into these effects that like draw and discard, or the beat chest effects where you're discarding, these effects are not great in terms of like fatigue math, because you're giving up multiple cards to get the power on your attack. But they do allow you to intimidate, which allows you to push through damage. So I think if you're going for a lot of the discard and the intimidate route, you could probably not run the shield, because like the shield helps you play a long game. But on the other hand, if you're wanting to just be more of like a big, like 3 for 7, like just big generic attacks, and you're going to mostly like be opting not to beat chest, then I think that deck might want the shield more. I kind of suspect that there might be two archetypes for Brute, especially Reinhardt, because he can have the shield. Guess we'll have to see if that comes out. I'm not 100% sure like how well that lines up into the Guardians and the Warriors in terms of fatigue, but I do think that you need to be conscious of like, if you're discarding cards, you kind of need to have a way to close the game, and I don't think the shield necessarily plays well into that. On the other hand, if you are not discarding cards, maybe you can play an attrition game, and it's something to try out. It's hard to say exactly how it lines up into the other classes.
Well, yeah, I think those are really good points. I think that's a really good point. Okay, let's actually talk about the other two weapons. So I guess the first one up would be Ballbreaker. So Ballbreaker is just a brute weapon at rare in this set. It has the sub theme, no, not sub theme, subclass of Flail. So it is a flail, and it attacks for the same cost 2 to attack, and it reads, if you've discarded a card with 6 or more power this turn, it gets +1. It's basically a 2 for 4 if you can enable it. It basically has the same problem as Mandible Claws, though, right?
Yeah, this is like kind of like a mini romping club, and it has some like interesting synergies, but I do think you need to have like a plan of like how you're gonna enable this card. And I think some of like the beat chest non-attacks work really well with it. Like there's a Bonebreaker Bellow, which is a 1 cost non-attack action, and then it gives +3 to your next brute attack, or if you beat in chest, it gives +5 instead. So it's like the beat chest is an optional discard as a cost when you play it. And that has go again. So if you choose to beat chest, you'll get the +5 on it, and then you'll also enable this weapon, and you'll come in for 9. So that's like 3 cards, 9 damage plus the intimidate, which seems pretty okay. But I think you do want to plan to enable this. Alternatively, if your plan is to go like Wild Ride, you can start to see how these curves work, right? Like you can have like Wild Ride as a 2 go again into Mandible Claw into Ballbreaker, something like that would work. But this is kind of like your ender at the end of the turn, and you need to have a way to kind of enable the discard. Otherwise, it's just a Mandible Claw.
I think it's just a strictly better Mandible Claw for like to replace like, instead of playing 2 Mandible Claw, if you have like a free pick, you should almost always pick this card up, right? Because Mandible Claw Ballbreaker is almost going to be always strictly better in limited than having 2 Mandible Claws.
Yeah, I think so. I think having one of each is probably going to be better than having 2 claws. I kind of think that you'll probably want 1 claw most of the time, though.
And then the next rare would be Mini Meat Axe. This is the same attack value. It attacks for 3, and it's also paid 2 to attack. But this one reads, when this attacks, draw a card, then discard a random card.
So this is pretty interesting. I think... So the first thing to note here is that this enables both of the Brute's abilities if you discard a 6. So this can enable Reinhardt's Intimidate. This can enable KO's +1... the Might if you've discarded a 6. And it also enables Mandible Claw if you can give it go again through something like an agility token. So I think that Mini Meat Axe is like, again, a weapon you're going to need a plan for. Of course, the fatigue math on this is really bad because you're drawing a card, discarding a card, coming in for 3, so you're kind of like converting a card into 3, which is fine, but it doesn't really like help you push through fatigue. It's just like on rate in terms of like your fatigue math. You're getting 3 out of your card, which is okay. But I think if you're playing Mini Meat Axe, you're either looking to like have agility tokens, and then Mini Meat Axe can enable your Mandible Claw to then have go again and give you an Intimidate or a Might token, depending. I guess intimidate because you're a Rhinar if you're dual wielding, and then you can finish on attack. Something like that is sort of what I see doing with this card. But honestly, I think Mini Medax is maybe the one that impresses me the least.
It kind of doesn't do anything that is so important, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many other cards in this set, like, you don't, like, they don't actually get a benefit from, like, getting discarded. So, like, you don't really need to fill your graveyard. It's so bad on fatigue math. I just, like, can't see how this is good unless it's, like, super easy to make agility tokens. Like, basically need to make an agility token every turn and, like, build around Mini Medax for it to be good, right?
Yeah, or like every like I could see like maybe like you have an agility token, you play a 5 card turn enabled by your Mini Medax and your agility token, and then you like set up a agility token and do the same thing. So you have like on turn, off turn kind of cycles. I could see that being the case, but I do think that this is one that you're going to need to build around. It isn't just like good by default. And it's also worth noting that like some of those curves we were talking about, like Mini Medax, Mandible Claw, 2 cost attack, is all like really good in theory, but you also still have like the added layer of the you draw and then discard a random card, so you're not always able to plan your turn perfectly. So like even though this is an enabler for the Mandible Claw, it's like a little bit it's like not so easy to consistently pull it off. So Mini Medax is one that like I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, but I'm maybe the most skeptical of.
Oh, I misread this card too. This is draw a card then discard. I thought it was discard then draw a card, but oh my god, this is
Discard draw would be pretty good because you could end on this and then draw a card, which would be really good if you had no cards in hand. But it doesn't do that.
oh okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. But like, oh, okay, you can't. I was thinking that you get to like decide what card to discard essentially by keeping
No.
us like keeping 2 6s or something. But oh, if you draw into like a blue like
Yeah,
non-6, then it could actually break your turn. Okay, yeah, that's kind of bad.
pretty hard to use to me, but I don't know. I suspect that it's a rare in this set. I suspect that it has some kind of role. It just might not be like one that you play to all the time. It might be like a very specific kind of setup that you need.
Do you think these rare weapons are gonna be like worth trying to pick up early, or do you think it's gonna be like a later pick? Just like first impressions. Obviously, yeah, we haven't played with the set yet.
I'm not super impressed with them. Like I think the Ballbreaker is like I think having like Ballbreaker Mandible Claw is better than having double Mandible Claw, but I don't know if it's by like
If it's worth a pick.
so much. Like I think it's worth a pick. I just like am I gonna pack one pick one Ballbreaker? Like I kind of find that hard to imagine. I think you probably like my guess would be that you want to be in Brute and you're kind of like, okay, maybe I'm playing Rhinar and deciding which Brute, and you get this kind of like mid to late pack, and then you can pick it up and it will make your deck a little better. But I don't think I'm like I think some of the other equipment are way more powerful than this card. Is basically where I'm at.
Yep, I agree with that. Then let's talk about some of these more powerful weapon equipments. We'll first talk about Knucklehead. Knucklehead is a KO specialization brute equipment head, so it's only for KO. And it has action, destroy this, roll a 6-sided die until end of your turn. You have intellect is the number rolled. Sorry, your base intellect is the number rolled. So if you roll a 1, you draw a 1 at the end of your turn. If you roll a 6, you roll 6 at the end of your turn. And it also has temper. And this card blocks for 2. It's kind of gross that it blocks for 2.
Yeah, so just at its baseline, Temper 2 headpiece, really good. Like we talked before, I think in like Uprising we talked about like Flame Scale Furnace, like even if you never activate it, just as like a Temper 2 chess piece, it's pretty insane. So Knucklehead already like just totally ignoring the action, which we will talk about, is a really good headpiece. And kind of maybe like jumping ahead or a bit of a spoiler, but I think that basically all these specialization headpieces at Rare are really, really strong. Most of them are probably pack one, pick ones, and I think that they're very strong, like kind of like signpost cards of like, you got Knucklehead, you should really think about being KO.
Yeah, I agree with this. And like to put it into perspective, like when Arcane Rising first came out, Skullcap was basically this. Like it was Knucklehead. Like it was just the headpiece that blocked for 3, and people were paying $100 plus for it. And now we get it at Rare, and it's just like, what is this power creep kind of? Right, like this card just feels like so much better than Skullcap already, and it's at Rare.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the conditional block to. you get the action out of it too. I mean, I guess it doesn't have like the arcane barrier piece, but that was always like a little bit niche, anyways. It was mostly used for the block. So yeah, Knucklehead, really, really good. What do you think about this action? So notably, this action doesn't have go again. When you destroy it, roll a six-sided die. You get base intellect equal to number rolled. Um, what do you think? Are we using this action every game? Some games? When are we? When are you thinking of using this?
Yeah, I think this action is really, really good. The best way to explain this will be there's a theory that some TCG use called the quadrant theory, typically Magic players, limited Magic players. So this looks at when a card is good in which situations. On the baseline, we have to think of this card as a temper 2 card and it just blocks for 3. So when you're ahead in the board state, this card is good because it blocks for 3. And you don't have to use the action, and you're ahead, and there's nothing to think about there. You're just using it as a block card. What's really important about this action part is that this card is really, really good when you're behind. In Flesh and Blood, it's actually kind of hard to come back when you have like a 3 or even 4 point life loss or like life disadvantage, either in cards in deck, life totals, number of cards in hand, just whatever it happens to be. If you're 2 cards behind, it's kind of like almost impossible to come back against like a really good player. And Knucklehead's action literally reads you have a 1 in 6 chance to bring that disadvantage back. It does require an action, so it would have to be a turn where you either block out completely, most likely going to happen if you are actually behind, or if you can like use a Mandible Claw, have with a go again, or some kind of other go again ability, and end with a Knucklehead. It's like a really strong comeback mechanic, if that makes sense. And because you're losing, the situations where you roll anything between a 1 and 4, you can kind of ignore because you're already losing that game anyways. If you roll a 1 to 4, like it's not changing the fact that you're still losing the game. But the difference is when you roll the 5 or a 6, that actually might give you enough advantage to win you the game. So this card is just like a built-in 1 in 3 to come back from a game where otherwise you were losing. If that would make sense, right?
Yeah, so I think like the important thing here is like if you roll a die, the average, you're never going to get this, but the average result of that die roll is 3.5. So you're spending an action point and your average amount of intellect that you get out of rolling this is like lower than 4. So on average, this isn't a good effect for you and you don't want to be using it all of the time. But as Jay said, maybe you're in that like kind of like lockout phase where you're just blocking. You just have to block and you can't do anything and you have no way back into the game. Well, rolling Knucklehead says maybe I can get 6 intellect and have a chance to come back into this game that I otherwise wouldn't have had. And the worst case scenario, I lose, like maybe I roll a 1 and I die, but I was probably not going to win anyway. So I think you should really view this as like an escape valve or like a Hail Mary where like I don't really have any outs. I'm just going to roll Knucklehead. And that's sort of like the use case for it. But I definitely don't think you want to be rolling this if you're already ahead or if it's like a really close end game where you have a lot of play. This is like a I have no other options and I can do this to try and have a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yuki said it much cleaner than I did. But yeah, I think this is insane because like in a typical game of Flesh and Blood, once you're behind, it's very difficult to come back. There's only a couple of Majestics in the game that like allow you to come back. In limited, it's even harder because so many of these cards are so close to on rate. And Knucklehead is like one of the cards that just read you get to be above rate when like it's only the times you roll 5 and 6, so it's 1 in 3 chance. But having a 1 in 3 chance to like have a good chance of coming back in the game is definitely close to the like this card is very, very strong. It is because that it has temper 2, right? If it doesn't have temper 2 and it was like Battle Sworn 1 instead, I'll be much less impressed about this card. But just like thinking that this card is a baseline is like a block 3 on an equipment is makes this card probably like well ahead of like every headpiece in I think in the set. Actually, I think it's the best headpiece of all of the 6 headpieces we get.
Ooh, interesting. I think it's very good. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I think it's the. I don't know what I think is the best. I think it's very strong. I think a lot of them are very strong. I agree it's on the stronger side. Let's go through and talk about all of them, and I'll decide which one I think is the strongest at the end. But it's definitely up there. I agree with you.
Right, then the next headpiece we're going to talk about is the Reinhardt specialization. This one is Monstrous Veil. It's a Brute Equipment headpiece, and it has action, destroy this, draw a card, then discard a card at random. Go again. And it has Battle Sword, 1. So always blocks for 1, and you always get this on-demand, maybe get a Intimidate from Reinhardt, or enable Mandible Claw, enable all of the discard abilities that required you to have discarded a card this turn.
Yeah, it can also be like hand fixing, right? Where like if you have like a big attack, you have like a 3 for 7 in your arsenal, but you draw all reds, you can potentially like block 3 cards, activate this, potentially get an intimidate and attack with your weapon. So or attack with your card in arsenal if you draw into a blue. So yeah, I think this card's pretty good. It's not as good as the KO spec, largely because it just blocks for 1 at Battle Worn, and the effect is it's okay. So I think this is like quite a bit weaker than the KO spec, but I still think it's quite good. Like this is still a card that I'm like pretty happy to pick up, and I think is like pretty strong.
I'm on the same boat. I think it's like it's so hard to say this card is like insane because it technically is kind of insane, but like compared to Knucklehead of Temper 2, is like I feel like that alone just makes this card a little bit worse. Like there's a big
Yeah.
difference it blocking like the card itself blocking for 3 and only blocking for 1. But Monstrous Veil does really set up those like lets you set up the double mandible claw turn with like an attack at the end, and it's a 3 card 12 or something that you get to set up with the Monstrous Veil. So this card can be worth like offensively like 2 or 3 points of damage on its own.
And there's a lot of strong equipment in this set, so it does have some strong competition, and we'll kind of we can talk about it as we go through. But in general, like this set has a lot of equipment that blocks pretty well for limited, like much more than I think we've ever seen in any set. So keep all of that in mind as we're talking about it. I think this set, like my big takeaway is like I want to have 4 equipment when I draft this set. I really want to have 4 equipment. There's a lot of equipment. It's like almost all very powerful. I think having like a 1 equipment deck compared to a 4 equipment deck is just going to be like so big, like so massive.
Okay, let's just move on and talk about Raw Meat. This is a Brute Equipment chest at common, and it reads, if you control an agility token, it gets +1 shield or 1 block value, and if you control a might token, it gets another block value, and it has temper.
Yeah, so at its ceiling, you can get 3 block out of this. If you have the agility and the might on 2 separate occasions, you can get the 3 block out of it. It's a little bit hard to use this on an on hit of your choice because it is like conditional on having the tokens, and then it has to line up with your opponent's on hit. So it's not so good at stopping on hits necessarily, but I think it's still quite a bit of value, and I do think it is quite strong overall. I think that this card gets better in KO because KO's ability spots you a might token the first time you discard a 6. So getting the might tokens really easy. Then all you need to get is the agility. It's probably a little bit worse than Reinhardt, but still solid there. And there are quite a few ways to make might and agility tokens in this set. So like if you're late in the draft, think about how many ways you have to do that. But I think there's a lot of ways, and like even at common we have like Smashback Alehorn blue non-attack action that creates an agility and a might token with go again. So like you use that card at the start of your turn, and then on your next turn cycle you'll have both the agility and the might to turn this on. So yeah, it will vary depending how many ways you have it, but I don't think it's going to be like too hard to get at least 1 block out of this, and often I think you'll be able to get 2.
Yeah, I think it's kind of unrealistic to try and get 3 block out of Raw Meat, right?
Yeah, you can't like count on it. Like I don't think it's going to happen like most games, but I think I think it is possible, and I think KO is going to have an infinitely easier time doing it just because you're going to be making the might tokens like relatively freely.
I think the takeaway would be like you want to try and maximize this card by getting 2 block out of it, and if you do get the third, I think you should count that more of a bonus than for you to plan it out throughout your game, because I think a lot of the time you get like the 2 block, and then maybe you might or may not get the extra 1 block. If you're playing against Raw Meat, and actually every single class has a card very similar to this card. Being aware of when this card is blocking for 2 and 1 is kind of important, because like if it blocks for 2, they're going to block with it. Like there's like no way they don't use it, right? Like on the turn they can block for 2, just to gain the 2 life.
Yeah, unless they're just like stuck with cards they can't convert, but I think you can pretty much assume they're going to be trying to cash it in for value when they can. So I think there's like an interesting like, how long do I wait before I just decide to cash in raw meat for 1 block? How do I play around my opponent having raw meat or a similar type card in their deck, and paying attention to when it blocks 1 and 2? I think there's like quite a bit of interesting play to all of these cards.
And like as a note, like it's kind of difficult to make agility tokens and might tokens on your opponent's turn. So it's kind of like face up of like how much this card's gonna block at the beginning of your own turn. So it's kind of easy to plan around for it too. So just keep it in mind that like if your opponent does have these chess pieces, then just be aware of what tokens they have on board.
Then, I guess last but not least, we have Apex Bonebreaker. This is a legendary brute equipment arms that blocks 2 and it has temper. And says when this defends together with a card with 6 or more power, create a might token. Notably, the L's are all moved to expansion slots, so you won't be seeing these in draft, and I don't think you see them in sealed. I'm not 100% sure if the sealed rules change between sets, but I don't think you're really going to see these in limited. So we can just stick to talking about this card in CC. This card's really strong. I mean, like, Temper 2 Gloves is, like, already really good. Like, we saw Crater Fist and Guardian just be such a staple, and the fact that you can potentially get, like, 2 Might tokens out of this card is insane. Its ceiling is, like, a delayed Goliath Gauntlet, like, split over 2 attacks, and Crater Fist. Like, it's just crazy. This card is so good.
Look, Goliath Gauntlet is just being played in like a lot of random decks, and Apex Bonebreaker has Temper 2 with it. That's kind of messed up, actually.
Yeah, you know what's like? I feel like it being split over 2 is like almost better. I feel like the thing that Brute's gonna do with this card, like there's lots of things you can do with this card, but I think like a common play pattern is gonna be like, wait till I get my command and conk, block with Apex Bonebreaker and a 6, command and conquer you for 7, and you can do that like twice. It's like so backbreaking.
That's gross. Oh, that's gross. I didn't even think about Command and Conquer with this card. Oh my god, that's
It's real
gross.
good. I'm sure there's like other things you can do with it, but like that alone makes me think that this card is just like, this is like one of the more powerful equipment in the game at this point. I think this is really strong.
Brute's getting some insane equipments. Like it got like the intimate during your opponent's turn headpiece
Hmm.
a set ago, and now it has Apex Bonebreaker. That's kind of messed up.
It does come at the opportunity cost of like gambler's gloves, but if you just like are pretty set to like not really roll scabs very much, you can have some incredible equipment at Brute. So that's really powerful and really really strong.
Yeah, who spins on Gambler's Club nowadays, anyways, right? Like, it's only to beat like Dromize and these illusionists that are making way too many dragons and just roll scab skins. Otherwise, you just like they just get go again anyways. Like they have so much go again with Manable Claws, and if they have Tunic, it's oh my god, this is gross.
All right, let's move along with Guardian, and we might have to move quickly through these spoilers. I'm noticing there is a lot of equipment in this set and a lot to talk about, so we'll do our best here. But going on to Guardian, we have High Riser. This is a Guardian one-handed hammer. Attacks for 3. Once per turn action, pay 3 to attack. And if you've drawn a card this turn, it gets +1. This is like mostly where's Titan's Fist. This is the token weapon. And most of the time, I think you're going to be attacking for 3. The main way to enable this is, I guess, with gold tokens, or if you're Victor and you create a gold, you then draw a card and then you can enable this. But I'm not sure how easy it is to like both create a gold and swing with your weapon afterwards all in one turn as Guardian. I think it's
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, let's talk about Miller's Grindstone as well, because I want to talk about fatigue math with both of them together. So Miller's Grindstone is a rare Guardian weapon. It's a one-handed hammer as well, and same attack cost. It costs 3 to attack, but it has the text of when this hits a hero, clash with them. If you win, destroy the top card of their deck. If they win, you get a -1 counter on this. So it starts attacking for 3, then 2, then 1, then 0 if you keep on losing these clashes. So just talking about both cards, they're both not that good in fatigue math. Obviously, just High Riser and Miller Grindstone. Miller Grindstone's fatigue math is okay. As printed, but if it gets one -1 counter on it, or even two -1 counters on it, it gets worse than Mandible Claws essentially, and that's the same with High Riser. High Riser just costs one more Mandible Claw that never gets go again. So both cards kind of aren't good in fatigue math. So I kind of have a feeling that both the Guardians do need to be more assertive with this set than the past sets when we had either Anathos or Titan's Fist and like got to just block for 9 and attack for 4 every turn. That's just not going to be the case in this set. It's significantly harder to draw a card, and cashing in a gold just to trigger High Riser doesn't sound good to me, and it has to be difficult to make gold. So just in general, first impressions, I don't think Guardian is the deck that can fatigue. I think Reinhardt might just be better at fatiguing people than these Guardians are.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It definitely could be the case. I think there might be like a sweet Miller's Grindstone deck where if you have enough ways to get gold in Victor, it's very good. Since Victor does have the text where you can, if you fail to win a clash, you can destroy a gold put the cards to the bottom and clash again. So that is quite strong. But
Imagine if you still lose once, right? Like if you use Victor Goldmane, you clash with the Miller Grindstone, and you're like, oh, I lose the clash. Okay, put my card to the bottom, flip the top card again. It's like a non-attack action again. You lose the game on the spot, right? Like you can't come back anymore.
yeah, it depends how late it happens. But yeah, I do see your point there. It's interesting.
Like obviously, if it works out, then you're winning. But like 1 in 8 games, 1 in 9 games, or something, it's gonna shoot you in the foot, and unless your whole deck is like high powered attacks, against KO, like KO has all sevens, like all sixes and sevens. Like what do you do? Like you're not gonna win clashes against that guy.
Yeah, it is true. It is going to be hard to clash against KO. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Victor in particular is like a hero that I don't quite have figured out yet. I mean, we'll talk about it more as we get into the pre-release, but I think it's a little tricky. Whereas like Betsy with like the overpower on Wager, I think has like a clear route to victory. Whereas like Victor's like you need to make these golds with your Wager cards, and then you get card advantage, which is really strong. But like, how easy is it to make golds? I don't know. So it's kind of interesting. I kind of wonder what Victor's going to be doing in limited in this set. Anyways, that's just like speculation. We'll see.
Yeah.
He's like not so obvious to me. Whereas Betsy, like I think at like level 0, you're going to your pre-release, you're not sure what to do. I think you're probably going to want to be Betsy most of the time, at least to start out, just because like the hero power is just so straightforward.
Yeah, I think Betsy's kind of superior to Victor in like just like level 0 thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's talk about the Guardian offhand. Looks like there's two, because we have one that's not spoiled yet. But the first one is Stonewall Impasse. It's a rare Guardian offhand, and it says when this defends, clash with the attacking hero. If you win, this card gets +1 shield until end of turn, and it has temper, so it has a base block of 1, and if you win the clash, you'll go up to 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever get, it's going to vary, like depending on the matchup, how good this is. But we talked about how good Temper 2 is. If you ever get, even if you just get like 1-2 block out of this, it's really good. All the weapons are one-handed, so it's not like you're giving up Anathos to play this. This is just an extra equipment slot. Card's really strong. Even just one block out of it, like Rotten Old Buckler was like a card you were pretty happy to pick up mid-pack in Tales of Aria, which is a really powerful format. This card is just considerably better than that. So this is like a card that I'd be picking up and would make me pretty incentivized to be Guardian, I think.
This is a slam pick, and if you know, once you know you're in Guardian, this is just like you can't pass this card unless you have like an offhand already.
Hmm. Hmm.
And obviously, as I said, we don't know what the other offhand is currently, and so we're just gonna jump right into the headpiece. And the first one we're going to talk about is Golden Glare. This is a Victor specialization, and it says when this defense together with 2 or more yellow cards, create a gold token. And it has Blade Break 2. So this card blocks for 2 for some reason.
This card is insane. Like, especially in limited. Like, you wind up with yellows in your deck, you're gonna wind up in a spot where this happens. I think there's like some matchups where you might not want to block with 2 cards plus this. But I mean, anytime you do this, you're just so far ahead because you get the 2 block out of this, and you get the gold token. Because you've made a gold token from an effect you control, you draw a card. Because you're Victor, right? So like that's just crazy. So if anytime that this is block to draw a card is just like insane, and I don't think it's that hard to do, at least in the matchups where there's like really big attacks. Also, even if it's just Blade Break 2, that's still good. That's still just good. And I kind of wonder if Victor's like if there is a clash deck, I don't know if there is, but if there is a clash deck and that's what Victor is trying to do to win clashes, you might want some yellows, maybe. Depends how the resource curve works out, but some yellows are better than blues in terms of power. So I don't know. I think this card's pretty solid.
Yeah, this card looks really good. Yeah, just Blade Break 2 on its face, like any headpiece with like any 2 block is just like strong, and this is more than one, so always play it, always pick it. Even if you can't enable its ability, you do want to build around it if you can, but like it's still fine. Like it's still good. It's still very, very strong.
Yeah.
The next card to talk is Good Time
Chapeau.
Chapeau. Good Time Chapeau. Okay, this is a Betsy specialization. It's a Guardian headpiece and has action. Destroy a gold you control. The next attack this turn gets when this attacks a hero, wager a Might and a Vigor token with them, and has go again. And this card has Temper, and it blocks for 2. I don't know why, but it does.
Yeah. So we've talked about how good Temper 2 is. Can't stress that enough. The ability, notably, it doesn't destroy the helmet. Usually with these effects, they're one-shot effects. This is actually just a repeatable effect. This is like almost like what we'd expect out of a legendary equipment usually, where it has a repeatable effect. How good is the effect is like kind of the next question. Destroying a gold to wager a Might and Vigor is like on its face okay. Like you're kind of trading sideways. You're trading gold for Might and Vigor, and it's like also conditional based on winning the wager. But when you keep in mind that Betsy like wants to wager to turn on her hero power and gives stuff +1 and overpower, I think that this card is going to be an engine piece for her and going to allow her to just like wager and give evasion more often, and that's really strong. So I think it kind of just like helps Betsy have that density of wager cards where if you have a wager gold card, not only can you wager it and get a gold, you can then use that gold to get like another wager, which is Might and Vigor, and enable some of the other cards. Because there are cards that like already have wager, so you can like double up on wager, or there's cards that alternatively like get bonuses when they're pumped, and like this can help you pump it with Betsy's ability and give it overpower. So this card's really good.
Yeah, and most notably too, this card can give your weapon wager. So I think we talked about this last episode, but we were talking about if we have an ability to give our weapons wager, and good time chapeau is a way to give high riser wager. So you can give it dominate essentially, or sorry, overpowered. So that's kind of gross too. Like even if it's like that's just like a good 1 card hand, right? You just go activate Good Time Shop Node, destroy a gold. Sorry, it's a 2-card hand. Activate Betsy's ability and then High Riser. So it's fine. Like I don't know how to say that better, but it's like attacking for 4 with overpowered is fine.
Yeah, I think that this card's really strong. This is like up there for me for like strongest. We're talking about strongest headpiece. This might be my choice.
I think the reason why I didn't put this card above Knucklehead is because I kind of have a hard time believing that you can actually activate this action more than once. I don't know if it's like actually worth it to cash in your gold for the wager that many times. I'm like I'm not as high on this action as like a on the situation that this action is actually like that impactful compared to when like Knucklehead is gonna be impactful.
Oh, interesting.
Because like when Knucklehead is game changing, it's going to definitely win you the game. Whereas like I think this card's ability might be like, oh, you have to do this. Like you're gonna make a gold, you're gonna use it, and it's gonna be good, but like the main portion of this card is still gonna be tempered too, just like in Knucklehead.
I think it's pretty, yeah, maybe. I think it's really strong. I think it's really strong in conjunction with some of the commons. Like we have these like 3 for 6 attacks, like concuss, where if it has base power higher than if it has a power higher than its base on hit, they discard a card. And there's also command respect, which is the same thing, but if it has base power higher than its base, it destroys their arsenal. And just like the play pattern of being like activate this hat, come in with a like 7 power, overpower on hit, discard a card or arsenal. Like, yeah, it's like a 3 card 7, but like a 3 card 7 with evasion and disruption attached is pretty insane. And then you get your might and your vigor as well. Like, that just sounds like such a beating. And the fact that those cards are common just makes me think like doing it even just like once or twice is gross.
You need to have the gold token before it.
It's true.
The gold, I feel like the gold is gonna be the hard part about this card. I think it's your deck's gonna be, it's gonna vary wildly depending on how easily you can make gold with this card.
That's fair. That's fair.
Betsy doesn't actually generate gold on her own, so you have to use generics or Majestic Bet Big to make gold. The puzzle piece of like how do I make a gold first, and then how do I line up this like pitch 5 into one of the combos you're talking about, and if doing that is good enough to win the game. No matter what, this card is tempered too, so broken. Card is broken no matter what happens.
Yeah, yeah. There's a number of commons that can make golds, but I do see your point. You do have to work for it a little bit.
Last card, Stand Ground. This is exactly the same as Raw Meat, was it?
Yeah.
And it has, I guess, +1 shield if you have a might token, and +1 shield if you have a vigor token, as temper 2.
Yeah, Guardian Equipment legs. Still very good. Slightly lower on this one because it is like you don't have like a hero ability that makes either of these. Although Good Time Chapeau does make both of them. So
yeah, Good Time Chapeau makes both of them. If Good Time Chapeau's action works really well in your deck, then Stand Ground always blocks for 3.
So I think that combination is like really strong, but if you don't have the two of them together, it's like slightly worse than Raw Meat, but still very good card.
Oh yeah. Do you want to briefly say something about the legendary Guardian Equipment offhand, which is Aurum Aegis?
Yeah, so Victor Specialization, this counts as a gold, temper 2. It's good. I don't know.
It's a strict upgrade to the other Guardian offhands that we currently have. So yeah, you play this if you're in CC.
Yeah, it kind of does like allow him to start with a gold for the purposes of Miller's Grindstone, so that's kind of sweet. And he can also just use it as temper 2, so it's good. Not too much to say. I think this card's like pretty on its face of what it does.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You can cash this in.
You can, yeah.
Okay, so next we're gonna be talking about the warrior equipment, weapons, stuff like that. As we knew, we get Centauri Saber as the token, and this just reads once per turn action, you pay a resource to attack. And then it has, when this is defended by one or more attack action cards, it gets +1 power until end of turn. And it attacks for 2.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty strong. There's a fair number of 2 blocks. There's a fair number of attack actions that block for 2. 1 for 2 on rate is like pretty okay, considering like we just saw Brood and Guardian. Most of them are like 2 or 3 resources for 3. So I think this weapon's pretty strong. Centauri Saber looks really good to me.
Yeah, and I think I forgot to say, but it is a one-handed weapon, so you get 2 of these. And all the weapons, I think all the weapons in the set is one-handed, isn't it?
For Warrior, yeah.
For everyone.
Oh, you're right. All of them. Yeah. That's true.
Warrior has 2 other weapons, rare, and we're going to talk about the first one is Hot Streak. And this one is once per turn action, single resource attack. And it says, when this is defended by 1 or more attack action cards, Hot Streak's attack gets go again this turn.
Definitely pretty cool. Going to be strong in the late game, but in the early game, you're going to need to find a way to give this go again. So I think like having 1 Hot Streak and 1 Centauri Saber seems really, really good to me. But yeah, just keep in mind that your opponent can choose not to block or block it with not an attack action, and then it won't get go again. So you can't like super rely on this. But I feel like having like kind of like we talked about with like Reinar wanting like probably a ball breaker as well as a mandible claw. I think having a Centauri saber and a hot streak is better than having two sabers most likely.
And then the last weapon is Parry Blade. This is the same cost attack, it just costs 1. And it says this gets +2 shield while defending a weapon attack and has Blade Break. And this one blocks for 0 as its base. So if it blocks a weapon, it blocks for 2. This is kind of interesting.
I think it's really strong. Again, like I don't think you want two of these, but just is just a weapon that doubles as like a shield for only weapons. I think it's pretty good. Again, I would probably run like Centauri Saber and Parry Blade over just Centauri Saber.
Yeah, so it looks like the warrior weapons, you just like always want one saber for sure. And then you get to pick up one of these hot streaks or parry blade to pair with it. So kind of similar to how Reinhardt wanted to be like one mandible claws and one of its other weapons. Olympia and Kasai just always wants one saber and one of the other ones, or even two saber is fine too, right?
Yeah, I think even two saber is fine. Kind of like we talked about with like the brute weapons. I think that these are like reasonable upgrades, but I don't think that they're like I think that the specialization hats are stronger by comparison.
Notably, Centauri Saber doesn't have go again, so it's kind of hard to convert hands with like double saber turns, right?
Yeah, I think it seems like Warrior's really going to be wanting to make agilities to make use of the Centauri sabers, and that's going to be like kind of a lot of their game plan is finding ways to make agility tokens and then convert their hands that way. And they're pretty. I think Warrior's going to be pretty good at winning wagers because they have quite a few attack reactions, and there's no defense reactions in this set, at least that we've seen so far. So those attack reactions are like almost true, like they're almost like unblockable, and winning your wager is going to be like, I think, pretty easy. So yeah, I think Warrior's going to be able to get agility tokens pretty reliably. Is sort of like my initial impression.
Okay, so that brings me to the next thought, which means, do you think Hot Streak is even that good then? Because if you can consistently make agility tokens with Centauri Sabers, doesn't it make just attacking with Centauri Sabers just like slightly better?
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. It's interesting, right? Because like if you wager on a hot streak, your opponent is like kind of in a spot of like, do I just let them win the wager? Do I block this and give it go again? Then they have a follow up. I think hot streak is good in the end game. Like if you're like if you're both at 2 and you're like blocking with 3 cards and you get to go attack you with hot streak, like sometimes they're gonna have the thing to not to block and not give this go again. But any turns that they don't, and then you get a like hot streak into Centauri Saber, like that is really good off of a blue. Like that's like 2 cards off of a blue consistently.
Off a blue? You mean off a yellow?
Off a yellow. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, the warrior weapons are interesting. Like I think they all have merit to them, and I'm curious like where you're gonna want each one. But I think hot streak is still quite strong.
Okay, let's just move on to the headpieces. And these headpieces are great as well. So first one is Olympia specialization. The prize Gallia? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I think so. Or is it Galia? I don't know, something like that.
Okay. Either way, this is a Olympia specialization, attack reaction, play a resource. Destroy this. Target weapon attack you control wagers a gold token with the defending hero. And this has Temper 2. Again, Temper 2. Kind of nuts.
Yeah, so being able to wager at reaction speed is really, really good because, as we said, there aren't really defense reactions, which means that you're going to win that wager, unless there are defense reactions we haven't seen. But as far as I can tell, there aren't really defense reactions. Yeah, that's really strong. And then Olympia also gives you a gold token the first time you win a wager. So effectively, this kind of gives you like 2 gold tokens for winning. I kind of have like a big like macro question in this set of like I'm curious like how good gold tokens are going to feel in terms of like being able to like yeah you can pitch a blue, you get a new card, you're up a resource, like that seems pretty interesting. But like I'm curious if there's gold payoffs in the set or if they're just going to be good on their own. It's for me it's like the gold tokens are a little hard to evaluate both in CC as well as draft. So how good this activated ability is or this attack reaction is going to depend on how strong the gold is. And I'm like very undecided on how good I think it is. I'm like, maybe it's good. I'm really not sure. It's like hand fixing with upside, which is traditionally pretty good in card games, but also like not being able to plan your hand in Flesh and Blood has a real cost, and I think that that's going to be like something you have to think about as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's good on the turns where you like block down. I guess you have like the play pattern of like block 3 cards, crack a gold, swing a saber off of a blue, and arsenal the card that you draw. Like maybe that's just like a strong enough use case. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe just cashing this card in for the one more block with the temper instead
Mm-hmm.
of like activating an attack reaction is kind of maybe better. Like you're guaranteed
Yeah,
one point of health. It's is kind of huge.
yeah. I kind of think that might be the case as well. I'm just curious because like Olympia's whole ability is like you win wagers, you get gold. So I'm like, huh. Like I wonder how many gold you're gonna wind up with, what you're gonna do with those gold, how good they're gonna feel. It's interesting.
Oh, this makes you 2 gold.
Yeah, this is effectively makes you 2 gold, which is like, I don't know. It sounds kind of good. It depends what you like. Again, it's like back to that question of like how good are these gold? Like I think in Kasai, the golds are amazing, right? Because you pay 2, you draw a card, then your swords are free. Like you're already getting paid out. You don't need a payoff for it. But like in Olympia, it's like a little more like you have this gold and like maybe it's good.
That's fair. Well, let's talk about Kasai specialization then. This one's called Hood of the Red Sand, and this is a attack reaction, pay a resource, banish a red and a yellow card from your graveyard, destroy this, target sword attack gets, when this hits, draw a card, and has Battle Sworn 1.
This is insane. I think that this headpiece is like really good. I think this headpiece might be like CC playable. I don't think like it's not like you're not gonna play like Crown of Providence or like the new generic headpiece, which we'll talk about later. But card does something really unique from it in that it's like a very good aggressive piece and just like reaction speed on hit draw a card, especially in a set without attack reactions, is gross. And you already get the Battle Worn 1. So like yes, you don't get the temper 2, but like at some point you're gonna draw a card. So this is like effectively like +1 card draw, Battle Worn 1. Additionally, because you're Kasai, when you draw a card, your saber attacks are free. So like it costs 1, but it kind of doesn't because it makes your next sword attack free. Like you need to have the go again, but I think you're going to be able to do that, and I think that this card is really, really good.
It kind of depends on like how good your hand can convert cards, right? Because the card you draw, you have to be able to play it somehow for it to be good.
Mhm.
It's kind of insane if you can make Centauri Cell Swords. I think we talked about the Kasai specialization last week. But if you have like a bunch of these like Centauri Cell Swords, which is like the ally of the set, then it's just like it snowballs like really hard with the Hood of the Red Sand.
There's like a bunch of attack reactions in this set, and also like Kasai's textbooks and this equipment incentivize you to have like quite a few yellows in your deck. I don't know. I'm pretty interested. Like having yellows just means that you're gonna like some classes have the problem of like you draw a random card and it's a blue, and like in Guardian like there's blues you don't want to arsenal or you don't really want to arsenal. But I think that Kasai having like I'm sure you'll have some blues, but having like a higher density of yellows probably also helps this card be good. I don't know. I think it's pretty strong.
I think Hood of the Red Sand is A+ card. It's honestly all of these like headpiece specialization is like a slam pick. It's probably a slam first pick. It's gonna get closer with like some of the majestics in the set, but like it's like if you're comparing it to most of the commons in the set, I think it's gonna be a slam pick.
I think I'm just gonna want to sit there and pick equipment for like the first 5 picks if people will let me. People probably won't let me, but if people let me sit there and just pick equipment, that's probably what I'm gonna try and do.
Yeah, it's like pack 1, pick 1 prize gala, pack 2 Hood of the Red Sand, pack 3 like Shapno. Oh, amazing! You can do anything you want now.
Yeah, yeah, it just seems insane. And like we kind of talked about like the idea like having equipment in all your slots is powerful, so just having a bunch of equipment seems really, really, really good.
Okay, then let's talk about the last warrior equipment. It's a common. It's Beckon Applause. So this is exactly the same as the ones we saw already, but this one you need to control an agility token for +1 and a vigor token for +1, and it's tempered 0. I guess it just
Arms
depends on.
piece.
how, and it's arms piece, yes. And I guess it depends on how easy it is to make the vigor token, right?
Yeah, the agility and the vigors. They do have like these attack reactions that can make agility and vigors, if but it's like conditional on them defending with an attack action card. So like I'm really curious like how this set's gonna play out and how like the meta is gonna be. Like, are people gonna be like mostly ignoring warrior? Are you gonna have to block warrior and respect it sometimes? I'm not totally sure, but I do think that warrior is going to be doing some amount of like wager and pushing wagers over with reactions. That seems to be like kind of the class identity. They have like a whole bunch of attack reactions, and we kind of talked about how strong that is in a format without defense reacts. So I think you're going to be able to create some of these. How easily are you going to get both of them?
The next equipment is going to be, there's 3 equipments that are dual class.
Well, we have the L.
Sorry, the L. Let's talk about the Grains of Bloodspill first.
This card's sweet.
Grains of Bloodspill is a warrior chest piece, and it says whenever a weapon attack you control hits, you may pay a resource. If you do, create a vigor token, and it has temper 2.
I think this is really good. It's sort of like tech plating for warriors. It's not once per turn. So if you like hit with 2 weapons and you have 2 extra resources, you can potentially get like 2 vigor tokens, which is pretty good. Definitely cool for constructed. I think it has some like stiff competition with Courage of Bladehold and Tunic, but I think that there's probably going to be a deck that wants this. Being able to bank resources and just like make use, like we see that with like dash, right? Like even like pistol or hybrid dash, where you can just like sink extra resources into your pistol and kind of save that up for your next turn, is like really, really powerful. It kind of means you're just like never losing value. This kind of like reminds me of that.
Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't played warrior or played against the warrior other than Dory for like a year, and I don't even know. I kind of don't even know if this is card actually better than Tunic or Courage of Bladehold, because those cards were kind of insane already, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's going to depend on the deck. Like, I think against like a deck like Dory, where you're like sort of naturally incentivizing your opponent to block your weapon out, it's probably a lot worse. It's probably better in a deck where like maybe like Kasai, where you're kind of incentivized to dual wield swords. Your swords don't necessarily have on hit; they just have good value, and this just lets you be efficient. It's kind of like where I see this card. But I don't know. Yeah, we have to play with it. I think it's like very interesting. But I agree, it has stiff competition, so we'll see. I think it's a powerful effect, but who knows? Got to play with it to know for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's whenever I see a chess piece at legendary slot, I'm always like, I have to make a mental note that this card has to be better than Tunic for me to play it. And like a lot of the times, I'm just like, do I play tech plating or Tunic? It's probably Tunic.
Yeah.
Either way, not limited. I don't care. If people play it, I'll read it then.
Fair enough.
Let's just talk about the next cycle. So these are the hybrid cards. So there's the Brute Guardian hybrid equipment. This is an arm piece called Gauntlet of Might. And actually, I'm going to just talk about all 3 of them before we talk about their abilities. The Brute Warrior one is called Flat Trackers, and this is a Brute Warrior leg piece. And the last one is called Vigor Girth, and this is a Guardian Warrior chest piece. And all of these cards are Blade Break 1 equipment, and they all have action, destroy this, and it makes one of the 3 tokens depending on which hybrid you are.
Right. Yeah. So the Guardian Brute one makes a might and is a gloves. The Brute Warrior one is a legs and makes an agility, and then the Guardian Warrior one is a chest piece and makes a vigor token. So notably, like there's no head slot. They're not competing with the specializations, which I think is intentional. Blade Break 1 is like already good, right? Like this is like Iron Rot with upside, and I think that the abilities are like all pretty decent. On the face, I think Flat Trackers is like probably the strongest. Action point seems like the most powerful to have on demand, but resource is good, and honestly the +1 attack could still be good for some classes as well. Like if you have like the Guardian attacks that get bonuses for having base power higher than, or having power higher than their base. Like maybe you're going to Arsenal one and you want to play it next turn. Gauntlet of Might could get some extra value there. But yeah, I think these are all like super solid and pretty, like not as high picks as the headpieces, but still like very good, especially considering they fit into two of the three classes or like four of the six decks that you might draft.
Yeah, I think these cards are very strong, and it's you
Mm-hmm.
just pick them up because like they're so flexible, and like
Mm-hmm.
it helps you stay open in the draft, which is like in these like dual class draft sets. It's important. Like if you have the option to stay open, being open is very powerful. These equipments are powerful cards that go in any deck that it can fit into. Always is a blade break one, so it always has some kind of application. Mostly flat trackers. It's kind of messed up that your Snapdragon Scaler can also have an optional block one now.
Yeah, it's slightly less flexible. Like you have to use it the turn before, so you don't necessarily know when you're going to try it. But it is very good.
Okay, let's move on. We're pressing a little bit on time, but we do have the generics to talk about. So let's talk about Glory Seeker first. So Glory Seeker is a generic equipment headpiece, and all it reads is instant pay 3 resources, destroy this, and then you draw a card. I kind of don't think you ever pick this card.
I don't think that is true, but I think that you pick it really late. Like it competing with the specializations is like the biggest problem with this card, and it's also not really plus value. It's just hand smoothing. So, oh, it does not go again. No, it's an instant. It's an instant. So, like, it's okay. It is hand fixing. I like that it's an instant, so you can use it on your opponent's turn and then like plan your blocks accordingly. You don't have to like wait till your turn and then potentially get screwed. But yeah, you're gonna want any of the specializations over this. So I think if you're drafting, you would pick this late, and it would be like there's nothing else in the pack, or like I don't have a specialization headpiece and it's like mid pack 3 and I pick this up and it's better than nothing, but you're not hoping to play this card.
I think the only time I'm gonna pick this card if it's like end of pack 3 and there's like nothing else for me. And like
Yeah, me too. Or like there's like 3 cards left in the pack and you're just like, these are unplayable.
like if I'm looking at like a 3 card pack in pack 1 and like I see like 2 off-class cards and a Glory Seeker, I'm actually thinking about passing a Glory Seeker, hoping the guy next to me picks it up and like makes a weird assessment that they already have a headpiece, so they pass me some random specialization that's not in their class or something like that, you know?
Yeah, it's very not that great. It's mostly not good because of the competition it has.
Yeah, it's literally the worst headpiece. Like we're gonna talk about other generic headpieces, and it's worse than them. So I think this is like not even close. You just never pick this card.
That's fair. I could see that being the case. So Sheltered Cove is another generic headpiece. It also has an instant for 3 resources. Destroy this. The next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 2 of that damage. This is like more powerful, again, in a set without defense reactions. It can potentially allow you to deal with warrior attacks, with warrior attack reactions. So that is like kind of good. But converting a card in your hand for 2 block is like not very exciting. So again, specialization is much better. I think it is like probably a little bit better than Glory Seeker in my books, but
I'm actually different from you on this one. I think I'm picking this card kind of highly, and
really,
yeah, I think I'm gonna be picking up Shelter Cove kind of highly. If it's in your sealed pool, I would make a mental note that it's in your sealed pool. Even if I have a Guardian specialization headpiece, I might play this Cove into Warrior as like a sideboard.
I agree with that.
And because of that, I think I just like, even if like I can pick the Shelter Cove early and pick up a specialization and just like have both in my deck as like a sideboard thing. And so you can pick up Shelter Cove late and be okay with it, even if you already have a headpiece. I kind of like don't want this card like against everyone, but like against exactly Warrior, I think it's gonna be like kind of game changing if you have this card or not, right? Because like we were talking about how good the reactions were in the Warriors and like how you can plan around like these like unblockable damage with these attack reactions. But once you have a sheltered cove, that goes out of the window, right? Like they can't just like plan around to always hit their wager because you could always shelter cove and block it out.
I do think it is like a decent amount better than Glory Seeker, but I think part of it for Shelter Cove with me is like This is kind of like a Guardian headpiece in disguise in a way, like because most decks, like if you're like an 8 blue deck, like there will be spots where maybe you want to use this, but it's gonna like have to line up with their attack reaction. And most of the time you're like not wanting to pitch your blue. So you're probably like need to be a deck that has multiple blues to really get use out of this. So that does make it like a little bit lower. But I can see like, yeah, maybe if you're like a defensive Guardian deck, then having Shelter Cove is quite good. And like I do think it is a card like that's worth considering. But I think for like a lot of classes, if you're on like 8 blues, I might just run the specialization, especially if it's a temper 2/1 over the Shelter Cove.
Next one is another headpiece. Actually, let's just talk about all four of these cards. It's called
Mhm.
Face Adversary. Yuki, can you
Diversity.
Face Adversity?
You know,
Okay.
like when somebody adversity, like when there's like a challenge or something. Adversity.
No, no. I'm English no good. English bad. Well, either way, this is a cycle. There's a leg, arms, chest, and headpiece of this, and they all read the same. Actually, they don't all read the same. How do I say this then? So I'm just gonna read Face Adversary first. It's a headpiece that says this may only defend an attack if the attack's controller has drawn a card this turn, and this card has Blade Break 2. The chest piece is can only block if they have destroyed a vigor token this turn, then I can block for 2. The arm piece can only block if they've destroyed a might token this turn, and the leg piece can only block if they've destroyed an agility token this turn.
So the headpiece is the worst of the bunch. We've kind of talked about it. Has the most competition, and also like drawing a card is probably the hardest condition of these. I think you're going to want to pay attention to like what the token type is, because classes can make 2 of these tokens, but not 3. What is it? It's like vigor might is brute. No, might agility is brute. Vigor might is guardian, and vigor agility is warrior. So pay attention to that if you have multiple sideboard options. But I do think you're going to be able to cash these in, maybe not to stop out like on hits reliably, but just to get like 2 value, and that's good. 2 value that you start with on board is good. I think that these cards are quite strong.
I think it's fair. I think other than I would it's the same reason as like Glory Seeker not being like a good headpiece. It has too much competition, but the other slots not so much. So I would pick the other slots a little bit highly. We're gonna talk about the next cycle. I don't even know how to say these. These are just Blade Break ones. There's a cycle of a head, chest, arms, leg piece, and they all have the same line of text. It says that card's defense is equal to the number of opposing hero with greater health than you, and it's Blade Break, and it has Blade Break Star. So in a 1v1 format, this all is just a Iron Rod that only works if your opponent has higher life than you.
Pretty solid. There's also an offhand, notably, which all the classes can use. It's generic, and has the same text. I think they're pretty strong. It's interesting comparing it to the Blade Break 2 cycle that we just saw. They're like both conditional. This condition is like more universal because like the Blade Break 2s aren't going to work against every class. They'll work against like 2/3 of the classes. So I'm curious to see how that's going to be. Like I think it's like mostly like a slots, like a number of picks thing where like you're not going to be able to pick up like a full set of Blade Break to a full set of the Blade Break 1 and like your specialization most likely like you're because like you also have to draft your deck and you'll have some dead picks. So I'll be curious to see like that's something I'm going to be paying attention to early is like how often those other ones are turned on, how often these ones are turned on. I think in general, if I have like one of the 2 in the slot, I'm going to value the second version of that card a little bit less.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like if I have the chess piece, if I have the Blade Break 1 chess piece, I'm not gonna pick the Blade Break 2 chess piece as highly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one note that I have is like Blade Break 2 is significantly better if it works, right?
Yes, I think that's true. And I think power level wise, I think like the hybrid cycle that we talked about, I would think initially rate higher than these. So it's just like Blade Break 1 that's always on, and then you have the other option of creating a token. And I think like overall, I suspect that I'll like that consistency more, but again, it's something to pay attention to as we play with the cards. But for example, like if I don't know, like a warrior, I'm gonna want like Vigor Girth in my chest piece and flat trackers in my boots if I can, most likely. But that doesn't mean that I won't pick up these other ones if I see them. So that's sort of like my initial guess. But it's definitely better than the Blade Break 1 ones. It's the Blade Break 2 ones are a little harder to evaluate.
Just one side note: the offhand, the bloodied oval. It's if you are playing Guardian and if you don't have a rare offhand yet, there is no token offhand, at least from our knowledge. Having 2 high riser kind of not good, so you should probably be picking up these bloodied oval kind of slightly higher if you once you know you're in Guardian.
Yeah, I will say I agree with all of that, but having 2 bloodied high riser is better than just having one of them because you actually can still get agility tokens through wager or clash. So it is not impossible to swing 2 high risers. Like it's like you want to have both. Like if you know what I mean. Like I'd rather have a shield,
How do you
but
get a? There's no clash or wager that makes. Oh, your opponent can give you agility
yeah,
tokens.
your opponent can give it to you. If you block out their wage agility, you can go like high riser, high riser. That's
Oh.
real. So like I suspect that the shield's probably better than this, but if you don't have a shield, you definitely want to equip 2 high risers. Like don't sleep on that.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, your opponent can give you agility tokens. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's like a pretty real consideration. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's definitely real. If it comes up, it's huge.
Yeah, I think that pretty much rounds out everything. I guess we have the last L. We should probably talk about this L. It is the calling prize. Was there anything about the other generics before we talk about the L?
No, they kind of uninspiring. They're all just kind of good. Like
Yeah, they're kind of good. Not as good as the class ones, which makes sense and is pretty in line with the rest of the set. Like usually you don't want the generics to be the more flexible card to be better than the more narrow card. Okay, so Balance of Justice. This is the new calling first place prize card. It takes so there's no more Crown of Providences going out. It's going to be Balance of Justice now. This is a generic headpiece. It blocks for 2 and it has guard well, which is actually a new keyword. It says when this combat chain closes, if this defended, put -1 counters on it equal to its defense. So most of the time you're going to be blocking 2 with this, and then at the end of it, it will get 2 -1 counters on it, and it will have 0 defense but still stay in play. So it's sort of like Battle Warren without getting a 2 block and a 1 block out of Battle Warren.
so it's Blade Break 2, but it doesn't destroy it.
Yeah, that's another way of thinking of it. Blade Break 2 where it doesn't destroy it. So this is like a pretty strong keyword. It's probably like it's like a little bit worse than Temper 1 because you don't get to have the option of blocking twice with it, but it is better than Blade Break.
Okay.
Anyways, its ability is destroy this, draw a card as an instant, and activate this only if your opponent has drawn 2 or more cards this turn. This card's pretty interesting. It does compete with Crown of Providence. I think that they're good in different spots. It's going to be like, I think it's going to be kind of like deck and meta dependent on whether or not you want to play this card, but like there's like a bunch of stuff that this hits already, like Dromai's Tome of Imperial Flame draws 2 cards.
Oh.
Art of War Ninjas draws 2 cards. Blood Rush Bellow and any of the Brutes draws 2 cards. So like,
Oh.
you know,
okay.
like 3 of a Kind and Lexi used to draw 2 cards. Like so
Oh, okay. I
it, it depends.
dude. When I first saw this card, I was like, when does your opponent ever draw 2 cards? And then you just listed like a bunch of good cards in CC, and I'm like, oh, people draw 2 cards a lot in this game.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be like an interesting deck choice, interesting like meta call of like what decks do I expect to see? Do they draw cards? Do I want percentage points into those? Having this and not having Crown of Providence is a real cost. The draw card from this is like almost certainly better than Crown of Providence and against the strategies where it's on in like the vast majority of cases. Like I don't know. This card's good. I kind of like where this lands as an L. It doesn't feel like it feels like a side grade to Crown of Providence. Like it's good in different spots. Crown of Providence is good against CNC. This is good against their power turns. You can potentially use this like if you're an aggressive deck and you play this and you get like Art of Ward, you can potentially like draw and then have access to a 6-card hand to hit them back, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know. I like this card. It's cool.
I thought this card was bad, and then now that you talk to me, you talked me way up into it now.
Well, also like Dash.io. Dash.io plays Tomo Findle. Somebody pointed out that against Kano, this is better than Crown of Providence, which is true.
Why?
Because sometimes they draw cards and at least it does something. Like it's not as good as like Null Rune or Spell Void, but like if they ever tome, you can get another card and potentially AB. Like it's not nothing. Like I'm not saying you're playing this to hate out Kano, but if your deck only has Crown of Providence or Balance of Justice, you would definitely play Balance of Justice against Kano, like 100% of the time, right?
That's fair. You know what? That's super fair. Okay, yeah, you convinced me more.
So yeah, this card's sweet. I think it's nice to see. I'm glad that they didn't just like power creep Crown of Providence or just make a worse Crown of Providence. I like that if it's going to be in the same slot, it's like they're both good sometimes. Because I felt like Crown of Providence was like a little bit too much better than Skullcap, where like technically Skullcap has its merits, but like really you just play Crown of Providence all the time.
Skullcap is officially power creeped.
Yes, I think so.
Like I feel like Knucklehead and like all of these like specialization temper 2s power creeps Skullcap. So yeah, that's where Skullcap is.
Yeah. For Skullcap.
Yeah. It was good in its time.
Okay, so I think that's all the equipment. This was a pretty long episode. There was a lot of equipment to talk about. Hopefully this helps you a little bit for both CC, but especially limited. I think like this isn't really like a pre-release primer. We'll be doing that next week, and we'll have been able to watch some of Queenstown as well. So like that's another great resource if you want to get ready for for your pre-release or Calling Hartford coming up shortly after. Baseline advice that I'm going to give everybody that I think is really, really good and you can't go wrong with. First thing I would do, look at all of your equipment. If a class has like a full set of equipment and another class has like no equipment, you should most likely be playing the class that has a full set of equipment. So like I think like equipment is going to be like a really good like guiding light of like here are the classes that I want to be. I guess if you just like can't make playables, then maybe you can't do it. But like I think having like the number of equipment you have in a given class is like a really, really good indicator of how encouraged you are to play that class at pre-release, assuming that the pools are like even remotely close otherwise.
Okay, you gonna wrap it up?
Yeah, that's gonna wrap us up for this week. We'd love to hear your thoughts about heavy hitters, anything that stands out to you, set-wise, equipment-wise. What are you looking forward to in limited? We'd love to hear about all of that. So you can either let us know in the comments, let us know on social media. Jay is at UedaJ on Twitter. I'm at YukiLiBender on Twitter, or you can email us directly at onthebobble@gmail.com. Also, for any of our Patreon listeners, if you have any questions that you would like to get into the podcast and have answered on the podcast, there is a channel in the Discord where you can submit questions, or you can just tweet at us or reach out to us on social media as well if you want to submit those questions for us to talk about. Those are always nice starting points for episodes as well. But that's going to be it for now. And to everybody, good luck in whatever events you have coming up, whether that's Queenstown, Calling Hartford, Calling Liverpool, pre-release, whatever it is. Best of luck to you and have a good night.